We have a great session. We are going to dig into talking about the social impact of video. And this session is brought to you by the Telly Awards, who are all about honoring excellence in video and television across all screens. And also by Storage, who are bringing us fast and secure storage, also with a sustainable theme here. And we're going to dig into that a lot. So to kick off this great conversation, we're going to have a screening, and then we're going to have some cocktails, which are sustainable as well because the liquid goes into your body or something like that and gets used that way. Anyway, I want to bring up the managing director of the Telly Awards, and that is Amanda Needham. Come on up, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda, and I am super excited to be hosting a conversation with some amazing folks from across the spectrum of video production, as we should be at a place like NAB. One of them is getting their registration papers right now, so I will be slowly introducing them like Miss America so they can walk on the stage while the third one arrives. But in all seriousness, at the Telly Awards, we honor excellence in video across all screens, so we do branded content, commercial productions, documentary series, television shows. And every year we focus on industry conversations that are sort of at the edge of what's happening in our world. And social impact is kind of a classic. Sustainability, more and more we see content coming across what we review that is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with filmmaking. Today, we're going to be talking about what's behind the scenes and behind the screens. So at the Tellys, we're honoring what you see up front. But today, we've got Becky Morrison from The Light, who is a producer and CEO and founder extraordinaire running a production company. We've got Gloria Pitagowski, who is a post-production managing partner, and she'll be talking about the post-process and how they think about impact and sustainability. And we've got Ben Golub, who's the CEO of Storage, and they are thinking about sustainability and social impact from a cloud perspective, so where the data is. So we've got all the nodes in the process of where impact can happen in a production, from the cloud to post to production to what you actually see on the screen. So I'm actually going to bring Ben up and Becky, and Gloria will join us when she joins us. Come on up, guys. I mean, Miss America, here we go, one all the way. So cloud. Cloud is in the sky at the far end, Ben? Yes. Becky's right here. And Gloria shall join. So one of the first things that I always think about when thinking about social impact, and I do come from an on-the-screen perspective, right? I'm looking at the content as it's being submitted in a category like social impact or advocacy or sustainability. And a lot of times, here we go! Yay, Gloria! No, you are not sorry. You are here. So a lot of times, people's interpretation of social impact is what they're seeing. Is it polar bears? Not to belittle polar bears. Is it something that is like actively pushing for some sort of societal change? And the reality is that social impact is much more about the process and an integrated perspective on impact than it necessarily is about the output. And that's the conversation we're going to have today, is about how we really pull together those aspects in the work we do in all these layers. So let's do a brief introduction of what your role is in your company, and then we're actually going to show a few pieces from Gloria and Becky and our work, and then break it down a little bit what actually went into making those impact-oriented or sustainable. So, Gloria, please.
Hi, folks. So my name is Gloria Pitagorski, and I own a small company called Herd City, and we are a sound production post company. But I also sit on a few boards, including the AICP board, which is a great organization, and also Green the Bid, which is another fabulous organization that we'll talk a little bit more about. But they're definitely an incredible resource for all the things that we're discussing today.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Becky Morrison. I'm the founder and CEO of The Light, which is a commercial production company. And at The Light, we believe that a production company's responsibility is not just to make money or to win awards, but to ensure the well-being of the people that work with us. So we have a very expanded definition of what sustainability means on our sets, and we're very committed to changing the culture of production so that the experience of working on set can be positive and uplifting as opposed to the one that we have now. So that's a little about me. I'm also on the advisory board of Green the Bid with Gloria.
Hi, I'm Ben Golub. I'm the CEO of Storage, which is a digital storage company that is widely used throughout the entertainment industry. We were founded in a dorm room at Morehouse College, so historically black college university. Roughly half of the people we hired over the past 2 years were BIPOC people. We also have a strong digital sustainability focus as a company. So unlike most cloud storage companies, we do not build data centers, we do not buy drives. Instead, we leverage the roughly 70% of idle capacity that's sitting on drives all around the planet, which allows us to deliver not only storage that's faster and 1/10 the price, but actually 1/20 the carbon. So, and I'm part of the recently formed Digital Sustainability Alliance as well.
Cool. So if there's 3 things you're going to be left with after this session, I'm just going to tell you them up front so you remember them. The first is that Storage is hosting a happy hour afterwards, so we're going to continue this conversation over drinks when we're done. 2 is that I want you are going to have a fundamentally different definition of what social impact and sustainability means when thinking about films, and it's going to be holistic. And 3, you're going to have some very concrete takeaways from these active small businesses and scalable businesses on how to actually do that right now based on their actual lived experience. So here we go. If we could, I want to start though with just an example of the kind of work the people on this stage do. It's like a short 7-minute screening of various commercials, trailers, impact pieces that come from us, so you can get a sense of the kind of work we do. And there's a trick question at the end, which is what connects them all. And the answer is not what you might think. Yes. So we're ready to play it if we can.
I think I'm really lucky, that I get to come and see this. You feel like you're part of something much bigger. There's no place on earth like Antarctica. It's just so beautiful and so majestic. Nature is running its course here. Everything that needs to be happening is happening, and you don't want that to change.
It's so hard to get here. And yet, less than 100 years ago, even with archaic technology, we still managed to decimate the blue whale population in the Southern Ocean. And decades later, they've still shown basically no sign of recovery in Antarctica.
Antarctica's not a country. It has no government and no native population. The regulations that exist here come from an impressive set of long-standing multinational agreements called the Antarctic Treaty System. This system limits the activities in the ocean, declares the continent a scientific preserve, and dedicates the land to research and peace. Everything done here has to be done by unanimous consent of the members of the treaty system. So it is quite difficult to do direct lasting damage, but at the same time, it is also difficult to put in additional protections. It's truly an incredible accomplishment in international diplomacy, and it is probably the only reason the continent and the surrounding ocean remain relatively pristine today. But unfortunately, this system does not protect everything.
today we've seen tabular icebergs, cathedral icebergs, and everywhere we've gone, we've seen all this brash ice throughout the ocean, and it's actually beautiful to look at. But when you stop and think about where that comes from, the entire Larsen B and sea ice shelves of this entire peninsula are gone. Basically, the ice is disappearing, and this is the biggest indicator of a melting Antarctica.
There's nowhere else like Antarctica. Everything, the ice shelves, the whales, the penguins, the krill, this whole ecosystem exists within an extremely delicate balance. And our planet is changing in such dramatic ways that things that happen far away are now impacting this place. And that's why we're here. It's not just about the photography. We are here to learn and to see things firsthand. But we're also here to understand what the role of humanity is within that delicate balance.
This commercial was designed with audio description for people who are blind or partially sighted, so more people can experience it. A red-haired woman holds a white cane and feels her way down apartment steps. She strolls past a man scrubbing his vintage sports car.
Love the music, Rick.
Good morning, Marjorie.
Good morning.
Marjorie tilts her head. What's that sound? A shopping cart?
Hey, Marjorie.
It's her friend on a skateboard.
Hey, Marcus.
Nearby, kids play soccer. Marjorie steps into a tiny cafe.
Hey, Marjorie. Hi, Mayuki. Vanilla latte, please. Okay, $4.50.
Someone shuffles impatiently behind her. Marjorie isn't flustered. Her cards used to feel the same, but touch cards from MasterCard have distinct notches for debit, credit, and prepaid. She feels a half hexagon, her credit card. She taps a terminal and takes her latte.
Thank you.
She steps outside and strides away from us. Touch cards appear, each with a distinct notch. Introducing Touch Card by MasterCard. Because a world designed for all of us is priceless. The word priceless comes up next to the MasterCard logo.
Life puts us on a path. Sometimes narrow, sometimes winding, but always ours. When we're young, we're told that the world is ours, that we should figure out our path and take our shot. Then one day, we realize that the game we're playing is someone else's. In this game, we can't speak our truth. In this game, it feels like the only choice we have is theirs. But we can change the game. We can write new rules, radiate our joy, take back our power, and find our purpose. That's our path. Believe in your path. And by doing that, we can become who we're destined to be.
All right, so consider that a trailer of the awesome things we see every day. But we wanted to share those to frame this discussion because, one, they're all extremely high-quality pieces made by two of the people on this stage. And the first one was just a classic Telly Awards thing we saw in our sustainability category. Again, well made, but on the topic of sustainability. And all of those pieces are touching on diversity, accessibility, environmental impact, but the least sustainably made of them was probably the first one because it was about a subject matter that you would normally associate with social impact, but not necessarily made by a production company or a process that was thinking, not necessarily made by one that was internalizing social impact. But the second two pieces, made by Gloria and by Becky, were. And so I want to start off this conversation by asking both of you and then Ben about how you internalize social impact and sustainability into your company and still end up with a high quality output like that, which people would say is a classic commercial. It's a classic trailer. It's a classic promo. And I think a lot of the questions a lot of the times is, well, if you focus on those things, you can't make high quality work because your resources are being redirected in a different way or something like that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you internalize sustainable practices in your businesses, each of you, and how it is that you're able to make that great work still? Not that they're dialectic, but some might think they are.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think we like work in an environment with an abundance of creative people, and creative people bring forward these problem-solving skill sets. That's what we do as producers, as executors. We're in front of the camera, behind the camera, in post-production, in production. We're problem solvers. So I think it's almost a challenge of like, how do we deliver the highest level of creativity through, and also with all the lenses that we have, the lens of diversity and inclusion, the lens of sustainability. And I think that's achievable, and you end up with a product that's even more wonderful than you set out to be. Like at our sound company, I mean, we have some amazing sound designers like ADR and Foley. We dig into the creative work, but we also know that all the other stuff is also at play. Like we're not, the way like our footprint is at our facility. We have a 13,000 square foot facility. How do we do that? So when we first set out to build Herd City, we took this into play too. We've hired folks that would help us create a beautiful space that was sustainable, where the lighting was not taking up so much electricity. We bought at, secondhand shops is beautiful furniture. So there's so many things that play from that part of it that had nothing to do with the actual spots that we did, that were part of the process. Part of our company's ethos is to deliver the highest level of creativity, but also holding ourselves to the light of really like what's important to us as human beings. Whatever you are, whether you're a gaffer, whether you're a director, whether you're a costume designer, whether you're in the tech, whatever it is that you are, you still have a lens of what you want to do, how you want to deliver as a human being in your professional and your personal life. And that's what we do at Herd City. It's like really bringing all that into the fold. And Becky has an incredible way that she does it at her company.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's a question of this moment and this time that we would even consider doing production in a way that's not sustainable or that doesn't take into account people's experience. The question like, how did you do this high quality work but still do it in a way that considered people and the planet? It's like for us, it's a non-negotiable. There's no other way to work. We would never work in a way that doesn't take that into consideration. And I look forward to the time when our industry as a whole sees that as a non-negotiable. Because you could say, oh, wow, you made that in a way, because part of our whole ethos is treating people on set well. So providing good food, communicating what the project is about, paying people quickly. We share a portion of our profits with the crew. Our whole thing is making it, we want to be the crew's favorite production company to work with. And so this idea that like if we were doing a project, and the creative output, let's say, would be the same, but we could do it in a way in which people suffered on set, in which there was abuse, in which people had a horrible experience, or we could do it in a way where people felt good and uplifted and cared for. Like, why would we do it the other way? I have no idea. So at the Light, we just do it the way where everybody feels good all the time. Well, not that everybody feels good all the time, but that's our goal. We're holding the lens of that framework. So of course, on our sets, we make mistakes. People don't have a good experience. We don't always live up to our goal, but we're holding that framework to do it in a way that really takes into account people and the planet.
And one thing that I wanted to follow up on is that we don't always get it right? For so many years, we've been like structured to, like, for example, at our company, we archive everything forever. And until we really started having some conversations with people about how this is impacting, because it's an invisible thing, right? It's not a tangible thing. But what's in the cloud is somewhere. What's like all the media that we use, all the assets we use in production, in post-production, the editorial, the color, the entire process. There's so many assets going through so many different companies, and all this stuff is archived till the end of time. So creating best practices around that, which is new to us, has like really it's new to us, and now we're here on stage telling other company owners like this is what you can do, and then meeting some incredible individuals like you where you do it to the level that is beyond.
Yeah, Ben, how do you internalize sustainability in your active day-to-day in your business?
Yeah, I mean, we were founded really with both DEI as well as sustainability as DEI and sustainability as core to who we were. We sort of like to say, just because this doesn't have a tailpipe doesn't mean it doesn't have an environmental impact. And as beautiful as it is to watch a video about Antarctica, it's probably worth everybody in this audience knowing that about 3% of the carbon contribution that is created every year is from video and data. And because the amount of data that's being created every year is growing by about 23%, we're on a path for video and data to be a bigger contributor to global warming than agriculture by the year 2035, right? And so, if you think about what you're doing in your daily life, you bike to work, that'll save about 2 kilograms of carbon a day. That's great. You are vegan, you'll save another kilogram. If you use a disposable, you don't use disposable plastic cups, maybe that's 80 grams. You will undo all of that by uploading a minute of video. And so I think it's really incumbent on all of us as we think about how do we produce wonderful video, how do we distribute wonderful video. We think about the technology that underlies it, because we can make choices. In this room, we can make choices that will reduce that impact by power of 50 without sacrificing anything, right? It can actually be cheaper and faster and better. In the same way that I think, as you think about, is it a cost to pay people well and hire diverse? No, that actually produces better product, and I think you can do the same thing with the technology choices that you make.
So what are some of the concrete choices you guys have made in your businesses that have sort of baked in that thought process to what you do? And I do have some slides that have shared sort of some of what you've done that I can flip through. But Becky, do you want to start from a production standpoint? What have you done that's baked in that holistic view concretely?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that I'm also on the advisory board of Green the Bid, and they have an amazing, for anybody who's looking for that kind of resource, they have amazing resources about what we can do on set. So we do a lot of things where we make sure that our trucks aren't idling, we don't use single-use plastics, we measure our carbon impact, which you can see. This is something we create on every project. It's called our Rat Pack. So this was from a small job we did recently, but this is our sustainability report. So whether we're asked to by the client or not, we measure our carbon impact on all of our productions, and we provide that information to our clients. And we also send it out to all the crew that worked with us. We also track our metrics around race and ethnicity and gender, and we have people self-report, and we track that as well. Because, there's that saying that you can't manage what you can't measure. So, and in particular in commercials, there's not a lot of good data around DE&I, and now around sustainability, there's more. So we really want to do our part by measuring that on every single production and being transparent about our numbers.
So this is, again, the way that storage works is we sort of believe that the greenest data center is one that never has to be built, and the greenest drive is one that's already being spun, powered, and cooled, and you can just use up its extra capacity. So when you think about what it costs to store a terabyte of data, right? So most of the carbon impact came when the drive was manufactured, when the raw earth metals were mined, and so by the time a drive gets to you, it's raw materials have been mined in China. They've been shipped to Thailand to be made into a magnet. That's been shipped to Japan to make into a drive, which has been shipped to Malaysia for final assembly, and then it's shipped to wherever it's going to be used. And most of those drives in the world are less than 30% full. So we think about what the carbon impact is of all of that is underutilized, as well as being spun, powered, and cooled. If you think about the way we can be environmentally responsible in how we store data, how we serve data, we can reduce the carbon impact by, again, 50x between us and other technology partners without impacting the end user experience at all, in fact, making it better, right? And so those are the kinds of daily choices that we try and measure internally so that we deliver a good product.
And Gloria, you have sort of a community advocacy approach in addition to like building out your space. But tell us a bit about the Green the Bid practices and that.
Well, so there are two groups, right? There's Green the Bid. So we all came together. Right now there are dozens of companies that are members of Green the Bid. It's everything from brands to ad agencies to production companies to post-production companies. So basically the full spectrum of creating any kind of content. So now we have all these great people, all these great folks, and then we started having these discussions around how we do things, process, and what happens in the process. And we developed sort of best practices for every step of the way. So now we're like, all right, so we have this information. So these 27 of us that have been working on this know this. But I think the most important part is to get the information out there. It's to create the space. And we're also members of AICP, another organization which is about 540 companies that include production companies and post companies. So our goal is to really get the word out. Like, there's no reason why you have to reinvent the wheel for a lot of this stuff. The stuff is there already. It exists in sort of templates for best practices, how to handle wherever you are on the process of creating content. And wonderful creative content can be delivered even better through the lens of all this stuff. And I think that's also something that the Telly Award is always bringing together folks of similar mindset so we can be on this panel. So if one person here walks out and says, how am I doing things? How can I do things differently, right? How can I change the paradigm, shift the paradigm on something? Like, changing behavior is hard work. Personally, I know, like, it takes like 30 days before you can change behavior. Like, we all want to be a force for good, but it's like implementation is how you do it. Like, how you start changing that, how you manifest that change is by little, whether it's little change, big change. For us as a company, we knew data was a big part of it and how we handle that. So we went to folks and we asked questions and we're like, how can we improve this? How do you guys do it? We asked colleagues. We asked all sorts of folks that like, what is the best way to optimize this? How do we, it's not, sorry, we did that, let's offset, carbon offset is a big thing, right? That's sort of what happens a lot. But maybe not do the damage. Maybe, let's don't even do the damage. So then you won't have to offset anything. So I think that's also part of it, like internalizing that as a person and how you manifest that as an employee of a company or owner of a company, how you can do that in whatever role that you're in.
Yeah, I think it's being intentional about how you tie your sustainability or your social impact to actually being better as a business as well, right? And I think to the extent that we can think about hiring great people and treating them well and hiring a diverse workforce and knowing that will result in better product, that's the right thing to do, right? You don't do it because you feel guilty. You do it because you know you're going to get a better product in the end, right? And for what we do, right, we know that we're actually able to be far more profitable and deliver a far lower cost product to our customers because of the way that we build it. Because we're everything that we do that makes us less expensive also makes us less carbon intensive. And I think that notion that it's not an either or, but an and with social impact is really, I think, a very empowering way to think about how you run your business.
And to ask the questions from each other, right? Like, we learn from each other.
Right.
Like, it's just in the Zooms that we had, we've learned from each other, like, how we can do better. Like, and so keep having those conversations with your peers and folks in your circle.
Yeah.
So the QR code here, actually, a lot of the Green the Bid checklists and process for different types of companies is all available on that QR code. So that's just like a baseline, share the information and then implement it. But with limited resources and limited bandwidth, how do you, Why do you do this and how do you do this? I know I've already sort of asked this and you've said, like, why wouldn't we do it? How could we not do it? But it's like, yeah, why do you do this? Why is it baked in so much to what you're doing? You both had some really interesting personal backstories to how, like, you came to deciding to run your company this way. And I think that's relevant just because it's as much as a person deciding it's important to making it happen. That is like one layer of it. I'm just curious Becky, how did you start to decide that it was not a question to treat people right? You talked about just growing up in Manhattan and, like, where does that come from in your ethos?
Yeah, I think I've always, like, personally been interested in justice and seen injustice. I grew up in Manhattan, as you mentioned, in the 80s and 90s, and I just saw how I grew up with a very diverse group of friends, economically, racially. I was actually sponsored for skateboarding back in the day, so I used to skate a lot at, like, Union Square and Astor Place, and had a very diverse group of friends. And I just saw how differently we were treated, how differently we were treated by the police, by figures of authority, and also how different our home lives were. And there was just, it didn't make sense to me, and there was a real injustice in that fired me up from a very young age. And then I think working in production, I started as a production assistant, and I moved up, the totem pole of being a production coordinator and a production manager. And working on set is hard. Like, how many people here work on set? Yes, Max, I see you. We've worked together. Okay. For those of you who haven't worked on set, you have a sense of it, right? You've heard about Me Too. We've heard about all of this stuff that happens on set. It's hard. I've been yelled at by first ADs. I've been sexually harassed. I've cried in the bathroom, and I had to fight my way up the ladder, and it actually really hardened me. And I got to the point where I was a producer and I had taken on a lot of those characteristics. Like, I found myself arguing with the crew about overtime, or, like, firing someone that did me wrong. And I woke up one day and I was like, oh my God, like, I don't like who I've become. And that shook me. And it had me really question, like, well, why are we working this way? Like, who created this? Which also had me, we talked about this, like, I'm really a student of history, particularly through the lens of production. And I found that, when production was first designed, it was modeled off of the military, because World War I was going on at that time. It was modeled off of the assembly line. Henry Ford came out with the assembly line in 1913. And Hollywood at that time was like, oh, we'll make production like the military, like the factory. And we've replicated that for 100 years. And while the technology of filmmaking has completely evolved, I mean, look, we're at NAB. Like, all of the technology did not exist in the 1910s. They didn't have color or sound back then. But the way that we operate on set, the roles, the way we treat people, the culture, none of that has evolved very much in the past 100 years. So I think I, as somebody who was immersed in that and who was passionate about justice, it was a no-brainer to me when I owned my own company to say, we're going to do it differently. And it is a non-negotiable, because I don't want to perpetuate the way that I was treated coming up.
And that, like, endemic systems of how things are and how they work is the paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a mentality. We've all sort of discussed social impact or sustainability, not necessarily about what's on screen, but it's about the process of how you get there, and that is a systems change. What about the bottom line, Ben? I mean, have you baked it in so fundamentally that you can't do it wrong? Like, what? Like,
we could always make mistakes. No,
yeah.
but we baked it into how we do things, right? So we tied our business strategy to being environmentally sustainable, and, by the way, to being to adhering to our DEI values. So, we are able to hire great engineers in places other people aren't hiring, simply because we're willing to look beyond beyond the normal places that people look, right? And as we thought about how could we deliver a service that would be faster, that would be cheaper, that would be more durable, all of the things that people care about, we hit upon the notion that the best way to do it actually is to take advantage of all of this underutilized capacity around the world. And it'll be better not in spite of being sustainable, but because it's sustainable, right? And I think that is also a mindset shift. That as we think about how we do things, the old way of doing things is often not only unjust, but it's also unsustainable from a business standpoint as well. And the most powerful thing, I think, if you believe that individual economic empowerment is one of the most powerful things we have in the world. And the truth of the matter is, if you look around, I started my career in international development, and what I think the world learned very quickly after, I was working in rural Africa and in parts of the former Soviet Union, and big projects to bring in hospitals and inoculations don't work nearly as well as helping people create good small businesses. And when you do that, then suddenly women get educated and health improves and human rights improve. And so I think if we think about how do we empower people on small levels and on larger levels and embrace the power of economic incentives, we can do amazing things to make the world forward. And so that's sort of how we thought about it at Storage, and it sounds like in many ways the other panelists are as well.
Yeah, there's multiple approaches. So if anyone in the audience who's running a large broadcast company or working in one wants to do things differently, guys, what do they do? How do they start? What's actually doable? I mean, because sometimes we're talking about super entrenched systems. I mean, you're talking about mentally entrenched systems that we don't even question, like cut or your fight or all of it.
Language we use.
The language I mean, it's so endemic. So what are some of the, and Laura, you pointed out 30 days to make a change at least. What are some of the concrete things that you guys think they can do to actually shift even just a little bit how we do production, post, or storage?
I would say first, I assume that people here are doing that, right? That's why you came to this panel. So I feel like a lot of people here, this is something they're interested in and I'm sure are already doing. So you probably have a lot to teach us. The way that I look at it is I really do look at it as a framework. So a framework of whatever we want to call it, social impact or human rights or justice or sustainability. It's a framework. So long as we are making decisions within that framework and doing our best, that's the best we can do. Like, I love what Gloria said about, like, we just try. We make mistakes. Like, I use plastic straws sometimes, It's like, I know. It's, but I also do other things to offset that. And I think that there's, for some reason, the sustainability genre has a lot of shame baked into it unnecessarily. I think if we could rebrand sustainability, like if we could go back to the 1970s and rebrand it again, I think we would approach it very differently, because there is a lot of onus put on our individual decisions, which Ben, you just pointed out, is like negligible in the bigger picture. And also there's a lot of shame that comes with when we're doing something wrong. So I would say for all of us here, including myself and all of us, like, the goal is to just do our best, try, learn, do our best, try, keep doing that. If we mess up, it's okay. Just try again.
It's wrong. No. No, but start somewhere. I think that's a big part of it. I think, we can't approach it in a punitive approach, like, you're doing this is horrible, like, you're doing this. But there's a starting point somewhere to everyone here. And I think that's what you look at. And you look for guidance. There's so many resources out there. Like, I can't stress enough, like, I mean, we've spent like months and months and months putting stuff together, resources that everyone can just dig in and just take that and implement right away. So it's not like you're starting from scratch, from square one. So I think that's part of it as well. And also making sure that, like we always say, like, I have a 24-year-old son, and that's one of the reasons why I dig into it so much. But it's really not about next gen or my grandchildren's generation. It's about now, like how we do things now. So it's hard to create that sense of urgency without being so like, oh my God, the world's on fire scenario. So the messaging is hard, but I think at the end of the day, you just have to start somewhere. I think everyone plays a role in this, wherever you are, whether you're developing software, whether you're, and now we have, AI is everywhere. There's no and it's an incredible tool, so many wonderful things. And there's also the ethical component of how we're using everything, I think is key as well. So there are many different lenses that we talked about today on the panel, but I think at the end of the day is like, being a force for good is being a force for growth. And back to what you were saying about like what's the selling point? It's like whether it's a business owner, it's like cost savings, and whether it's getting this amazing, creative, better product. I think that's what you look at it. There is some really good takeaways to being good, and it's not just being good.
Yeah, I guess I would say I think there are three things you may have heard from all of us, right? One is certainly like being honest in how you measure your impact will force you to put your efforts where it will have the greatest good. I think second, that you don't view it as an either or, but you can do well by doing good, right? And then I third thing, especially for this audience, is to recognize actually what power you have. So I hope I didn't convey that our individual actions can't make a difference, especially in the video space. It is huge, not only in our ability to tell stories, but frankly in the ability for people here to make technological decisions that can take that 14% of the world's carbon that we will represent if we don't do things differently and take it down to 1%. That is huge, and this show has perhaps more power than almost any other show I can think of to make these kind of changes. So we should feel empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
And also, like, not being afraid of asking dumb questions. I remember when we started the journey of putting best practice together, I'm like, I have no idea what that metric means. Like, I have no idea what the F you're talking about. But so digging in and learning from people that know, like, is helpful too.
I feel like that's a wrap on some level, because we have a lovely bar over here where we can continue this conversation. I just want you all to know I have been inspired to think deeper about my own processes as a result of listening to you. And my perspective is I run an award show. I have a sustainability award, but I don't have a best company following sustainable practices award, and I could if I figured out the criteria for it. And I think that it's just a small shift. And a number of the conversations I've had with folks just here and elsewhere is like, oh, you're an accessibility advocate. I don't actually know how just thinking about it is the beginning of figuring it out. And so I'll be the guinea pig. Next year, we'll figure out a new award for how to do things. I mean, who knows? But I'm just saying, if everyone just thinks about it and doesn't feel afraid of asking questions and then uses some of the resources that exist and then tries to bake it into how they do their processes, we literally maybe could stop those carbon emissions, which would be pretty great. So let's continue the conversation. Thank you so much to everyone. Ben, Becky, Gloria, yes?
And thanks to Telly Awards for putting it together.
100%. These conversations are why we're here, because all this work is the work that matters. So if you do scan that, you can get some of the Green the Bid stuff. We'll follow up. And please join us for a drink.